Hey friends, it's Melissa from White Castle with Books, and in this video I'm just going to bring you 10 tips for helping children love reading time more. So the first tip, and these are just tips that I came up with having spent quite a bit of time reading to my children, but the first tip is to not be afraid to invest in books that they will specifically like. Children's books can get kind of pricey. It can be hard to spend $15 on one little children's book. But for me, it's worth at least trying to make sure that I have books that I know they will really love on the shelf, so that it's not kind of like a chore just because we should read to them, but it's something that they're very interested in. So like for my son, I make sure that we have a lot of dinosaur books around because he will sit and listen to me read anything that has pictures of dinosaurs or the names of dinosaurs. So yeah, tip number 1 is buy or acquire books that your children will actually enjoy. Tip number 2 is to utilize the library. This one seems pretty obvious, but even I don't really do this very well. I think it's really important to have books that belong to your children, so I buy books for my children that are specifically for them. This book is Thomas's dinosaur book, and he knows that. But it's also helpful to get books from the library so that you have a chance to read them and see if they're really interested in them, and then you could acquire the book if you felt like it was worth it. Tip number 3 is to not rush reading time. Even if you only read one book instead of trying to read 5 books, I think it's better to take your time and read that book and make sure that your child is understanding what you're saying. Tip number 4 is to ask your child questions, provoking thought, and asking them open-ended questions, not just like, oh, is this blue, or what color is this, but asking them questions that provoke thought about what's happening in the book and trying to help so that you can try to help them follow along with the storyline. Tip number 5 is to let them ask questions. Maybe it's just me, but sometimes when I am in a rush, like I said, it's good to take it slow, but when I'm in a rush, sometimes I'll just be like, no, quiet, I'm just trying to read you this book. And then I'll think to myself, this isn't what it's about. So tip number 5 is to let them ask questions and to try to answer them as best you can. Allow them to be engaged in the story that you're telling them. Tip number 6 is to use puppets. And I love this tip because children aren't afraid of puppets. They can connect with something like this. We have this dinosaur puppet, this T-Rex puppet for my son. And even if you take and read the book, have the puppet read the book to them, it can add an interesting factor to it that might spark more interest than if it was just you. Tip number 7 is to read at bedtime, and if you just go into bed a little bit earlier so that you're not stressed, it can make the atmosphere a lot better. But reading to your children at bedtime can make them love the reading because it's they can understand that it's saving them from going to bed. And if they're like my children fight bedtime like crazy. So if I go in there with them and I read to them, they appreciate those books, keeping them away from their bed as long as possible, and it makes them far more interested. They want me to read another chapter, or they want me to read another book, because they know that it's getting them out of bed. And even if this is kind of a little cheat tactic, I feel like it really helps them to gain a love of reading in a positive way, where reading is a positive thing for them. My 8th tip is to read with them close to you, and it kind of goes along with keeping it positive, but if they're sitting on your lap or if they're really close to you, I just feel that there's an extra connection between you and them as you're reading the book, and I think that helps to endear the book to them as well. Tip number 9 is to try and create characters, even if you don't feel like this is an easy thing for you to do. Even if all you do is talk in a low voice for the men and talk in a high voice for the women, I think that this can help them to feel more of the story and the characters in it, and it keeps it very interesting to them. And tip number 10 is to be patient and keep trying. If you have a child that doesn't really have a lot of interest in reading, just make reading time really short and brief and a very positive experience, and then maybe play with them afterwards. I have a very active daughter who loves to play. She's all about action and moving. And for her, what I would do is we would sit down and read for only a few minutes, and she loved it, and then we would play together. And both of those things together made her love the experience of reading as well as playing with me. So I feel like if you want to ingrain it, it doesn't take a lot of time. If you want to ingrain a love for reading in your child, just be patient with them and understand that every child has different interests, but if you keep to make it a positive experience, then I feel like they can grow to love it no matter how flamboyant or crazy they are. They can grow to love it if you keep it really positive and very close to their specific needs. So that's it, everybody. Those are my 10 tips for helping children love reading time more. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and as always, thank you for watching.